awards and social assistance, 570. You will see
So these would have been taken out and reallocated
support
here?
of technical and vocational education, guidance and counseling services.
For library services, is there a plan to upgrade, provide support for our community and school libraries, particularly, again, within the context where students have those who don't have devices and don't have access? There's little provided there for library services. Where is it? You said that.
So look at page 45 on the
41,045.
41,045. Public library services.
Okay.
So you see the funds provided here are to finance the administrative expense of school library services, the Jamaica Library Service headquarters, and the island's 13 parish libraries and 106 branch libraries and bookmobiles.
Thank you very much, Minister. In regards to the libraries, that are they open? And if they are open, what are the protocols put in place in order that we'll be able to have students going, doing their research, and not breaking the rules?
The libraries, as far as I know, are open. They have to observe, like every other entity, the COVID protocols in terms of ensuring hand sanitation, sorry, and that persons who come in wear their mask, temperature checks, and so on. So they are open. They continue to be open. Observing all the protocols.
Madam Minister, because this is an area that I have an interest in, library services. And I would have hoped that seeing how our libraries are now in still not attracting young persons to visit them, and seeing that we are moving, COVID has forced us in a certain direction. In the libraries can become a main area for students, especially in rural areas where we don't have that Wi-Fi connection, and we know the libraries do. And when I take my own constituency as an example, we have 3 libraries, one that I had outfitted and given to Jamaica Library Services, no rent at all. But when I did a survey of these 3 libraries, out of the 20 plus computers that they have, probably about 4 alone is now being able to be used. And I would have hoped that, looking at the budget here, that there would have been an emphasis in at least upgrading these libraries to augment what you're doing at the schools itself, to be at somewhere that the students can now come and do some work. But looking at the budget here, there's no real movement in that of the library services in that direction at all. What is the overall intention of the ministry where the libraries are concerned?
Okay, so we have an island-wide network of 111 public libraries and 898 school libraries. We view these different outlets that we have as integral in terms of education, not only for primary high school students, but for our young people. And that's why earlier on when we talked about the young people, we said that we would partner, we're looking to partner with libraries, with community access points, with community centers to see how best we can extend all the programs and initiatives that we have for young people in these institutions, because they are plentiful. They have a network across Jamaica. The brand recognition of the Jamaica Library Service is high. When there was a survey that was done some time ago, and so there is still a need for the services to be provided. It just needs to be better coordinated, and as you said, better resourced in terms of the technology that would exist in these different locations.
And because when I look at your numbers here, distribution of books is reduced by about $100 million compared to what was there for last financial year. But
Oh, you're talking, okay, but there was a reallocation of 116 million for retirement that is now being paid by the accountant general.
No. I'm talking about purchase and distribution of books for the public library. Look at the top, page 41,045.
Okay.
And seeing that, we're now understanding what effects COVID had on our educational system. I would have preferred to see a much more joined-up approach with the Ministry of Education and the library services as a part of that network of not only community access point but learning institutions for the kids. Because if you go to the Huntley Library in Northwest Manchester, you will see how many students in the general area come there to use the computers to do the online learning. So that's what I'm saying, that even though we're looking at giving out tablets and everything, but the libraries themselves can be used as a source of assisting these students, especially in deep rural parishes.
Sure.
So I'm just putting it to you to have a look at that area, library services, and better utilize them in the learning dispensation of these students.
That is our plan, member.
Minister, on the issue of nutrition and the support that we provide for students, how have we been delivering the nutrition during the COVID period for those students who are not physically in school, and how are we monitoring to ensure that the nutritional products actually get to the students?
Okay, so last year you might have seen where, in light of the fact that the children had to be at home, we did deliver items to schools for parents to pick up. And we also allocated some funds to the Ministry of Labor and Social Security to pay directly to parents for nutrition, given that the students are not in school. In the coming year, we have every expectation that our schools will be open again for face-to-face, and so we would begin to provide the breakfast and lunch and snack program for students across our many schools across Jamaica.
Am I correct? Did I hear correctly that only some designated schools receive support under the lunch program?
Designated children. Children on path that's our major segment of children who receive the breakfast and lunch program. But additionally, there are some needy families, needy children who would be identified as well across the school. So it's not school specific, it's child specific.
So just so I'm clear, the modus operandi now would be for the parents to physically pick up whatever is being provided at the school? for those students who
No,
would-
no, no. We had in last year, right? At the beginning of the pandemic,
Right.
you would have seen them drop it off at schools for parents. That proved to be inefficient. And so funds at maybe $2.5 billion were given to Ministry of Labor and Social Security to give directly to parents to provide the lunch for their students because they're at home now rather than being at school. So any activity that NPL would have had last year was just to get the inventory that they had out, to make whatever products that they could and deliver it to school.
So basically shifted the funds from the physical goods that MPL would provide to a direct cash transfer to the parents.
Right, right. But I'm saying once we get back into the
Right, we'd go back
then
to the
we'll go back
normal.
to that, yeah.
Has there been any monitoring of that to see whether what is being done actually gets to the students or not?
What, the funds?
Yeah, I mean,
Right, but
the reality is, I know it's difficult to, but, you know, parents may have competing needs and use those funds elsewhere, whereas, you know, when you provide the food directly. So I just ask
Right,
if there's
so,
any way
so
you have
having-
done checks to see that
Right.
the students actually get the nutrition they need.
Right, so having transferred these funds to the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, the monitoring would happen there in their normal course of monitoring that the right beneficiaries get. And I'm sure they probably do, you know, surveys in terms of to ensure that parents are doing what they're supposed to do with the funds.
Minister, could I take you back to an early intervention as it relates to the arrangements you have with USF and e-learning? There are many schools which have internet capacity, which is determined by arrangements through the Ministry of e-learning and USF. The reality, however, is that the arrangements that are made in terms of download and upload speeds normally would pre-COVID are the ones that exist now. And because of the requirement of the schools to have a greater upload speed and bandwidth, there needs to be some adjustments in terms of what happens. So it's a part of a housekeeping thing because the schools rely on uploading a lot of information with the programs that they are doing now with Google and whatever their platform they're using. And I know of one particular high school that has this problem right now. And it is something I suspect happens across the spectrum. So if you could have a discussion with e-learning USF to improve on that, then it would greatly aid your internet learning capacity at the school.
Right, thank you, Member. We have pulled together a task force that includes USF, e-learning, NWA, or internal technology group at the ministry to help us to assess the technology needs of our schools as it relates to connectivity. So right now, you have some schools who contract with the providers, school to provider. You have a number of different modalities. We are looking to see how we can bring uniformity to that, but also to look at the quality of the bandwidth connectivity that the schools get. We are defining how much a school should get based on their enrollment. We would like to get to the point where all our schools are networked so that we have visibility into the systems that into the network, so that we can do some other things that will bring greater uniformity and will bring better and more bandwidth to our schools, so that the experience of the schools while they're online will be significantly better.
Minister, those are very noble endeavors and are needed to be acted on. It's just that I'd like to have a time frame, because you see, it affects, you say you're putting together a committee which will look at this. But there are some low-hanging fruits.
No, but it is happening right now, though. It is happening
what I was
right now.
asking.
Already, 104 more of our schools have connectivity that did not have connectivity. So that's one major step. And the work, the task force that has come together is to look at it in its totality, right? So the way it began is that schools individually contract with their providers, and we're saying now the ministry needs to control that process so that you give the adequate bandwidth to the schools, rather than have them having to worry about, oh God, 200,000 a month for bandwidth. So that's what we're doing. It will take a little time, but I think in the end, the schools will have a much better experience.
Minister, right. On 41,038, where information and communication technology, there's a 406 million that...
I'm sorry, what page are you on?
41,038.
38. There's nothing on that page, member. All of those services have been collapsed into other areas.
Okay. Yeah. Because I'm seeing a 406 million on the information and communication technology. Right, for the 2019-2020, but there's nothing in 21-22. Right, so there's moved to some places.
Page 30, remember? Go to page 30.
38.
4100-30.
Yeah, 41,000.
Activity 11520, Information and Communication Technology Services. And you will see the budget would have gone from 317 million to 515 million.
Okay. So with that, Minister, is there the teaching and aid including in that budgeted figure? And I asked that question against the background. For example, Tidix, I believe you know so well, and places like Wonder Bowlers, they're not connected at all, and there is from the providers that we, or the two larger providers, the place is so rural that you can't get in there, and there's no service to receive what you spoke about before, the upload of lesson plan, etc. So the question, how within this, how we're...
For those schools, members, the schools that are in remote areas, with no connectivity, those are the ones that we would target for satellite connectivity. So we've already completed 104 schools, and we'll be looking to do others. We've identified that there's another 135 in remote areas. So in the upcoming financial year, we'll be looking to address those as well.
Minister, I'm coming back. I'm trying to find it on the pages, but I just can't find it. But I'm going to ask if you could give me permission to speak about the temporary teachers that are still assisting in schools. I've not seen anything, and I don't know if you have anything in the budget for the temporary teachers because they are still active, and you have persons, temporary staff that are still active, and especially now that all schools have to be closed, they need as much extra help as possible to continue teaching and learning.
Right.
But I've not seen anything in the budget, so I don't know if I'm missing the page.
All right. I think the page you're looking for is 4100-24. That's where we have the temporary teachers in the section labeled delivery of instruction. 4124. That's 24. Activity 10715, delivery of instruction. That's for infant school. Primary is on 26. And high school is on 30. 4100, that's 30. Alright, so the total is 1.5 billion for temporary teachers.
Minister, on the issue of rural transportation for students, there's been a vexed issue which comes up annually. Does the ministry have any plans to address this particular issue?
I know currently we do provide support for rural transportation, primarily for our past students. I think last year, 300, well, this upcoming budget is 380 million. I know that that is not adequate, but we have to operate within the budget that we have for the upcoming year. Ideally, if we had the resources, we would be looking at providing more in terms of transportation for our students. I know that we are in conversation with the Ministry of Transport to see how we could utilize better the mobile network, to see what kind of partnerships could be had there. It is something that we are concerned about. We know that outside of the KMA, transportation is an expensive item for our schools. Transportation is not as subsidized or not subsidized in our rural areas like it is in the Kingston metropolitan area. So that is something we're mindful of, and this year we would have continued to allocate towards transportation as best as we could.
Just to add to that, Minister, seeing that you're still having those students who are doing examinations, they're still participating face-to-face, I would think that it would have been a critical area that some attention would have been paid to, especially in rural again, where most students have to take public transport, sometimes 2 and 3, to get to school, which exposes them to the virus itself. That this area of transportation of students, more emphasis would have been put on it to at least to reduce the contact with them and the general public.
Right, so it is being accommodated during COVID. It is done at the school level. The school would negotiate with the local operator. The fact that not all our students are in school right now has given some additional
Which should make it much easier.
Right.
And I would say to you that, and to PS who is here, to at least take an examination through the regional offices of the schools that are utilizing it now, because it should be a priority that they do.
Yes, that is what is happening.
Yeah, are you sure? Yeah?
It's on the 41,000 C17. Have we, which relates to the establishment of diagnostic centers under the National Education Trust, have we delivered all three of those?
No, we are in this upcoming financial year going to be working at the one at Case. I know that Sam Sharp and Church are up and running. Michael has been up and running for many years now. The only one that's being worked on now is the one at Case.
What's the projected completion time for that one?
The next financial year. And you'll see the funds have been allocated.
On the issue of tertiary support, you had indicated in your opening remarks support for, I think, 3 tertiary institutions. Is that the normal support that the government provides on an annual basis? And I ask within the context of what seems to be some severe cash constraints affecting all our tertiary institutions. And is there a specific plan to try and assist them? I've heard comments from the Vice Chancellor of UWI about some discussions with the government, but to ensure that the public institutions remain viable and the government can honor its commitment to the obligations that it has, certainly to UA in particular.
All right, so I point you to 41,000-49 and 50, Appendix 1, that lists all the institutions that we support, all our tertiary or community colleges or polytechnic university or agricultural education sector, nursing schools or teacher colleges. You will see all of them that the ministry supports. Each year, just because you mentioned the University of the West Indies specifically, each year the government makes a grant to the university, and it is known upfront what the grant is going to be. And I can tell you, because I've sat in many, many meetings since I've been at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, and the government of Jamaica is current on its payment to the University of the West Indies. Would they like for the government to, give more funds? Yes, but within the context of the government's budget, the government in the upcoming year will be granting to the university $9.2 billion. And that is what, based on the budget of the government, that is what can be supported.
So that would cover the full extent of what our obligations would be in terms of the split of the economic cost between what the students would pay and what the government would cover?
Right. I know that there has been conversations about what the split is between government and student, and there are numbers that are bandied around. What I can say, based on being involved in this budget process, is that the government decides how much it can afford to give to the university. Whatever that split works out to be, then that's what comes out, of the numbers. But the government will tell the university at the beginning of the financial year that this is a grant that we're able to give you. The university has to take that, in addition to the fees that students pay, in addition to other activities, other commercial activities in which they engage, grant support from external partners, and to be able to manage their budget within that context.
So you can definitively state that this $9 billion represents the full amount that the government owes the university or is obligated to, and there's no other obligation for the next financial year from the government of Jamaica. I ask because I heard the Vice Chancellor speak about where governments can't pay to look at pledging assets instead of cash. So I just want to be clear that what is being provided here covers the GOJ's obligation.
The government of Jamaica has every year met its obligation to the University of Jamaica as per the budget numbers, and those are what are communicated to the university.
Minister, little dull today. So please bear with me.
I wonder why.
Please bear with me. Your answer is the question that was asked, and I'm also asking the question. As part of the arrangements with the University of the West Indies, each contributing territory is required to pay X amount each year to the university. The question that the member asked, and I'm asking as well, is this $9.195 billion the sum total of the obligations of the government of Jamaica to the University of the West Indies?
All right, let me answer it this way. There's what the university expects of government, and then there's what government can afford. So the university would put forward its budget, and to us at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, we in turn would say to the university, yes, we see your budget, but here's the grant that we can afford. And that's the process. And the government moves. Initially, the government was paying on a monthly basis. The university asked for the government to pay on a quarterly basis to allow them to better manage their cash flow. The government granted their request. And I can tell you, because I've seen the numbers, for this financial year that we're in, the government is current with the university. And I'm expecting that as we go forward in the next year, the government will also be current. UTEC, it's a similar model. It's a similar grant model to University of Technology. I mean,
why I ask that, since that it is UTEC is fully 100% owned by us here, yeah? And seeing the challenges, it has a less student ratio than the University of the West Indies. It has been struggling for quite a while, yeah? And seeing that it would most likely have a greater fallout or more than the University of the West Indies. As the ministry, you the minister, look at the overall survival of the University of Technology to see if this grant, even though you're saying this is within the constraint, but will this be able to allow the University of Technology to at least survive during and after the pandemic? At least this financial year.
So I know that our tertiary institutions have also suffered a fallout due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Students have been online mostly. They have not been able to be on campus to experience all that there is. And so that has caused a financial fallout for our tertiary institutions. For the University of Technology, for the upcoming year, the grant there is $2.9 billion, which is, it's going to be known upfront to them as to what the government can provide. We expect the university to, look at its budget in totality and kind of work within those confines. We are engaged at this moment in looking at the financing model for tertiary institutions. We have to first begin by setting out a policy. There's a draft policy that has been written that I've just signed to go to cabinet, because there is a rethink in how we fund our tertiary institutions. But that we think that engagement is only just beginning now. For the upcoming financial year, we have to provide the grant, and this year it's $2.9 billion to University of Technology.
Can I just go to 41,042 to deal with assessment and instruction? How many primary schools or how many public schools school, public institutions do we have that accept special needs students?
Oh, well, all of our public institutions should be accepting special needs students because our education is an inclusive one. I know that we have schools that specialize in, catering to special needs students, and that's fine, it's great, but across our public schools, no child should be left out because of a particular special need.
But wouldn't those schools need at least instructions being given with someone?
They do get the support.
With someone who has been trained in special education.
And I'm saying that they do get the support at the school level.
Why I ask, Minister?
Once a child has been identified, and I know I have some numbers here to let us know how many special needs students. Actually, we have 6,027 students with documented special needs across our schools. They are served in regular schools where they receive support as needed in a research room or other intervention program or through consultation with the regional special needs coordinator. In addition to those 6,027 students that are in our regular schools, there's another 4,126 students who are served in special education schools across the island. This includes government-owned or grant-aided schools for the deaf. We have 1 school for the blind, 7 schools for students with moderate to severe intellectual disability, and over 30 special education units and intervention programs, as well as independent special education schools. So we are very mindful, and beyond mindful, you can see that it's carefully documented so that we know which schools they're in and can provide the intervention programs for those students.
Well, as a member of parliament, I can say that every year I get at least 5 to 6 parents visiting up on my office because they have been sent to for their child to get assessed. Now, why I raise it is because I think that the special ed needs is something that we needs to take greater focus on. One, I know the government subsidizes the microcare, but I always, and I've been saying it for years, that the microcare needs to be expanded. Why?
But it's at Sam Sharp and we're expanding it at Cape. And just recently, the government would have taken over the funding of McCann, which is a special needs school.
I tell you why, Minister, because to go to the microcare, you go to Mandeville, you have at least a 1 or 2 month wait before you can get an appointment. Yeah? And I guess it's just the workload that they have. I'm not throwing anything on those who operate the microcare in Mandeville, but it is a long wait for a person to get an appointment. During that period, that child either will stay at home or not. For them to go private, it is too expensive. Right? And I would imagine that there are 2 to 3 times more students who have special needs, who are not being assessed and who are left out of the school system itself. Yeah? And that should be cause for concern, not only for us as a parliament and just nationally. And this area for me, especially in rural Jamaica, where we need more officers that are able to do some assessment for us to identify these students and to get them in an institution that can take care of these students. A lot more are being left behind. And some of the schools that you speak about that have that care, a little more is needed for these students that are special ed students.
Member, I agree with you in terms of the need.
Minister, it is something that in the educational system we need to seriously look at. I strongly believe that if you were to check almost all the institutions, especially starting from pre to primary, that have serious behavioral problems, it stems from not having the right assessment being done. And therefore, the students that we continue to call that they have no use, they are dunce, they feel demoralized, and they can't function. And guess what, Minister? We continue to just keep pumping monies into these schools and having them just going up the ladder. And no assessment is being done. And they are the ones who that are now become unattached. You see that unattached, that money that we would be spending on unattached youths, if we were paying some attention to the primary, starting from the basic schools to primary and sometimes secondary too. We cannot use this thing as a token. We continue to talk about micro-practicing and other areas that you can get in. How much children, if you were to do an assessment now in most of the school, if you have 45 in a class, almost 15 to 20 have that kind of problem and need assessment. And until we do so, we will not be able to correct the educational system in an effective way in Jamaica. Thank you.
Thank you, member. The data that we have suggests again that across our general education system, there are 6,027 students with documented special needs. 6,027 with documented special education needs, and to be able to give you that number means that those children would have been identified and assessed. Additionally, in special education schools, we have 4,126 students. Most recently, as I said earlier on, the government would have intervened in Macam Center, which is one of those schools that really caters to children with disability across the spectrum, to ensure that Macam will continue to grow and thrive. It provides assessments of special needs students. And you would have seen us increase the capacity, not just but there's Sam Sharp and churches, and there's Rock House Foundation in Sablamar. So the capacity has been increased over the years. Is it at a point where we should, sit back and fold our hands? No. We still need to move it along so that those who are in need of assessment don't have to wait, to get that assessment. And so we totally agree.
And I would challenge you, Minister, that even within that 6,000 that you speak of, that are documented, there are much more, which is the support point that member just made to you. And it is a matter where even some of the teachers that are teaching the children are not able to even make the assessment themselves. And we're just saying that just looking at our education sector, that may be more, because I'm sure that this budget of 112 million has not moved in years, have increased basically for the attention that needs to be given to the assessment. And we're just saying on this side that hopefully, if not this financial year, next financial year, that a great assessment is done on the students in our primary school system, at least catch them early. Because the member is right that a lot of them are unattached youths, and we cast them aside as a society to them just get trouble. Yeah? And I've been just begging for years that we put more attention in the assessment of these students.
Member Hannah has...
Thank you, Hannah. Good morning, ministers. Good morning to the PS and the team. I want to turn my attention a little bit more to the children's services and family protection. And I have, Madam Chair, maybe 3 or 4 questions if you would indulge me. Coming out of what both members have said, one of the things that actually plagues our society is something called PTSD. And a lot of children, especially now, because of crime, especially, and family abuse, domestic abuse, are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. In 2014-15, we had identified how to address this issue because we were going to build a therapeutic center to deal with children who were deemed uncontrollable by the law, but were not necessarily uncontrollable. I know JSIF at that time had committed 60 million. What I'm also aware of is that it has taken about 6 years to just get the approvals through the municipal corporation. So, Minister, I see in your capital budget here a special needs education services on 4000 C17. And it's the establishment of a diagnostic center. And it's coming under the National Education Trust Limited. This is for diagnostic centers for Sam Sharp, St. James, etc., which also on that page. This one is for 120 million. I also see one for 385 million. I applaud the effort because coming out of what the members are saying, I'm hoping that this is a forecast to the implementation of what is necessary to arrest the development of some of the things that we all know are problems. Is that 120 million, Minister, the establishment of a diagnostic center for finally that therapeutic facility that we were intending to establish at Maxfield Park Children's Home? In my speaking and meeting with JSIF recently, they said that the money is in place, the plans have finally been ratified, and that this center will actually finally be built. So I'm asking if this is it, and when can we hope for the breaking of ground at that place? And that's my first question, Madam Chair.
Okay, all right. The 120 member is the fund to complete the center at Case.
At Case?
Yeah.
Can you tell me anything about that diagnostic center, which is supposed to come through the new child protection services, which is to be built at the Maxfield Park Children's Home? This was a part of the additional services from the mobile psychological facilities that we had put in place, and this would have been the first center of its kind.
Okay, so on page 41,051-6, on the activity 10, 159.
I see the therapeutic center for
10 million.
No, but 10 million, that's not what it is. This is to be a capital expenditure. Can I ask you, Minister, to perhaps find out something about it? I know JSIF. I met with JSIF, and JSIF says everything is now in place for it to go forward. And I can tell you, it's such an urgent situation that I'm a little surprised that the PS is not aware of it.
All right, on that particular question, member, you're correct in terms of the 70 million from JC, and the ministry will be providing 30, and as far as I know, it's on track to start in April.
In April of this year.
Yeah.
Could I be updated, please? Because it is something that all of us would like to see implemented, and it would take the stress also of the places of safety and the correctional facilities if at first instance you can actually identify whether a child is having other kinds of issues rather than incarcerating them. The second question I have is as it relates to our children's homes. I see where we have about nearly close to 2,000 children, Minister, on 4,001-0517.
Yeah.
So we have close to 2,000 children in our children's homes and places of safety and other facilities in our foster care program. If I can turn your attention, Minister, to the breakdown of how those funds are allocated on page 41051-5. The bulk of those funds have always gone to support children's homes, both in terms of the public children's homes and the private ones that the government gives a subvention. I'm asking, what is a policy moving forward, especially against the background of ramping up the foster care program? Because foster parents are actually given the least amount in terms of that bulk. What is the policy going to be to actually encourage more foster care so that children can actually be in homes of families? Are you going to give more money? That's the first question. The second question is that I see where you actually have 5 privately operated places of safety, which approximately hold 150 children on 41051-7. And we're giving a subvention to those privately owned facilities of about 46 million. What is the arrangement of the government with these privately owned places of safety facilities? Is it that they get full subvention from the government, Minister, or they also get a subvention from the ministry, your ministry and the Ministry of National Security? Because it is a little strange to see that there are 5 privately held places of safety. It's usually children's homes, not the places of safety. What has happened?
Are you asking why we have the privately owned places?
I asked, yes, because normally it is just children's homes that we license and give subventions to, and that are privately owned. A place of safety is more of a facility. Is there anybody here from Children Protective Services? Only from the Ministry of Education? You don't have anybody here from the Yes. That's critical. Nobody can give you any information?
No. The question you're asking is why we have 5 privately operated places of safety.
One was, what is the ministry's policy now to give more money to foster care parents? Because under the foster care program, you actually have quite a bit of children, but the subvention that is given to the parents is not adequate. And it's the lowest subvention of all the subventions that are given. So when you break out of the 2,000 children who are in state care, whether it is in children's homes, places of safety, or foster care, you notice that the children's homes get the bulk of it and the foster care gets the least amount. And I want to know what your policy is going forward. The option I have children's homes. So I would like you to get the information. Call Mrs. Gage Gray, ask her the information.
Okay, we'll get that information.
Okay, and then the final question I have for you, Minister, as it relates to the Child Protective Services. And all of us in here, every child in this country as leaders should be seen as our own child. And so whether they're in the school system or diagnostic care or in places of safety or children's homes, a lot of parents are not coping. And what I'm about to say is not contentious, but it is really just a red flag. The fact that no one is here to represent Child Protective Services at this point, and considering how important it is as a part of your ministry, needs careful review.
I want to say, members, you should read nothing from that. We are abided by the COVID protocol.
No, Minister.
You've asked a question that I will get the answer to with regards to our places of safety. But there shouldn't be anything read into that. The CPFSA is an agency that we interact with very closely. We know what is happening there. We understand the issues that they're dealing with and the many, many situations, the many cases of abuse and so on that happen, that come to their attention, that they have to action and they have to so on. So I would not read into it what you are reading into it at all, member.
All right, Minister. I reserve the right to read into it, and I just hope that at the next sitting, your PS will be more advised on this particular issue as it relates to adoption, foster care, children's homes, places of safety, and other types of situations that are out there where children are dealing with harrowing situations and their parents. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, it's now 11:23.
Just one
so
final.
I'm going to allow the last question on this matter.
Minister, I really...
Or before you come back in, let me just say, in terms of the information, the member expressed surprise that they are privately operated places of safety.
I didn't express surprise, Minister.
Have been operating for decades now. It's not new. It's not a new phenomenon.
Minister, I understand that you might be a little frustrated with my line of questioning, but surprise, surprise is not.
Members. First of all,
Chairman, I don't think I said anything out of turn.
The minister is not, I recall I've been following the conversation, and your question was that you were surprised to see, those were your exact words, you were surprised to see 5 privately owned. Members, please. She has a right to say something, and as a chairman of the meeting, I have a right to say. Member, you did use the word surprise. You said you were surprised to see. So the minister's response is in direct. Her wording is in direct response to the use of your word surprise, and she's merely saying that they've been around for a long time. So it's certainly, and I don't think anybody has got any indication this morning that she's frustrated with your line of questioning. You came in late, you've asked questions, and she's been answering them. So I really think that
Madam
it's
Speaker,
unnecessary to use
Madam
that word.
Speaker, I rescind the word frustrated.
Thank you
from
very
my
much.
Vernacular. Minister, thank you. However, Madam Chair, in moving forward, perhaps there can be some respect, begets respect on this side and on that side. And certainly when members are asking questions, members who are acquainted with the budgetary process, that there can be a level of patience on that side, because what is happening is that there is almost a feeling that if you ask a question, there are such remarks that would want to bludgeon persons into submission by virtue of how the responses are coming from the side of the government.
And in response to that, member, please, members, I want to say that I too believe that respect goes from both sides, this side and that. And I want to indicate clearly that there has been no constraint at all in terms of questions. and you came in and you have been questioning, and it is the use of the word surprise about the main thing that the minister was responding to, and she did so correctly. So I really, and as a chairman here, I will not allow any disrespect on either side. Members will, share things, but we've been going in a fairly, and because you said you were surprised, she merely responded, and you used the word frustration, and you have, but what I'm saying, and I want to make it very clear, because I will not have any disrespect on either side, and as a chairman, when there was an outburst, I did ask the members, so there's no need to return. I am making sure, and the leader of opposition business will advise you, we have agreed and we have allowed the questioning to flow as freely as it ought to. I really think this morning that the blunder was on your part in using the word surprise and the word frustrating. All right. And with time, I don't want to waste any time now because we're running behind.
One final.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Minister, just...
I'll respond to you, all right?
Minister.
Madam Chair, just to say that we do have Mrs. Gage Gray on speed dial, and so she has been watching the proceedings and responded to us. And just to clarify for the member, indeed, member, your observation is correct. We don't have privately operated. We have 5 government places of safety, which are Homestead, Granville, Blossom, Glen Hope, and St. Augustine, and 4 children's homes.
Just for clarification, Minister, can you repeat what you just said?
Heard, member, time is against us. She has said it, and I'm not going to allow it. I am only going to allow the last question here. Please. Thank you. Go ahead. I am allowing the last question. I'm not...
Did not hear what she said. She has on her mask.
Member, I am not going to repeat what it is.
Can you write it down for me?
Write it and
Minister,
send it
write it and send it over, because what I heard her say is that indeed there are 5 private, there are 5 government-owned places of safety.
Do that. Member,
That's what
I am
she
going
said.
to ask you,
Chairman,
in as
please,
much
please.
as you have asked for respect
Chairman.
from the other side of the aisle, I expect you to respect the chair. She's going to write it across you. Go ahead, member.
Chairman, may I intervene? Because I think that in keeping with the spirit of how we've been conducting this investigation since yesterday, one of the cardinal rules is that we don't speak in chorus. Whenever one member is speaking, particularly the chair, when the chair speaks, it is expected that every member will remain silent until the chair is completed. And I would really urge that we respect this particular tradition. Thank you.
Minister, my final question.
All right.
I want to understand the principle on which the government funds tertiary institutions, in particular the universities. And I just give you my context. Certainly for the University of the West Indies, which is a regional institution, my understanding was that the regional governments had an obligation in terms of a particular percentage of the funding. What you have explained is that UWI might ask for $10, you only have 7, you provide 7. Is that the same principle on which UTech is funded and the other institutions? And when did we seemingly shift from what I understood to be an obligation on the part of the governments to the university to now a system where it is based on what we can afford? So it's just the principle that concerns me, because it sounds as if, well, if I can only do 4 million or 3 million, then that's what I'm going to do, regardless of what the cost is. And what I always understood, certainly with UWI, was that the regional governments had an obligation to fund a particular percentage of the cost of education.
Well, what I do know is that since 2009, we would have shifted to giving a block grant to the institutions. Maybe before that, I don't know, PS before that? Okay, I understand. Before that, up to 2008, it was, maybe the 80-20 rule.
For UTEC, what is the principle that applies to UTEC? Is it, again, they would submit a budget of $10 and you can only do 5, and you grant whatever you can afford to grant?
Right.
Is that the principle?
UTEC is a grant, it's a grant.
Okay, so it bears no relation to the cost of delivering the education to the students.
Right, so they have to operate their overall budget, based on fees, other endeavors that they have, and the grant that they would have received from the government.
Okay, I'm through.
Madam Chair, can you, and please ensure that the correction is made on the appropriate page.
Parliament will do all that is necessary. I'm now going to put the heads, 41,000, pages 1 to 50. Those in favor?
Aye.
I put the heads 41,000 C, pages 1 to 18. Those in favor?
Aye.
And pages 41,051, pages 1 to 7. Those in favor?
Madam Chair,
Those against?
there's a correction on 41,0517 as it relates to private places of safety and government. Based on what the minister just said, it should have been government places of safety.
And the correction will be made. It is acknowledged and it is approved. Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, in the interim, might I use the opportunity to just leader of opposition business? Leader of opposition business? Yes, thank you. Madam Deputy Leader. Madam Deputy House Leader. She's not here. She's not here. Madam Deputy House Leader. Lord, you're a word.
Can you just beckon to her that the House Leader is speaking?
Thank you. Just for an amendment to the order of business for the day. The schedule that you have would indicate that the Minister of Gender, Gender, Sports and Culture and Entertainment would be the next ministry to be taken after local government. There is an amendment to the program flow, and that minister will present last. So after Minister Mackenzie will be Minister Shaw and Minister Green, and it will follow order, and then at the end we would have the Minister of Gender Affairs. May it please you, Madam Chair.
Now having the chair, the Minister of Local Government and his team. And I am going to repeat now as the chair for the benefit of all of us as members and for the public. At the beginning of the sitting of these meetings, it was indicated that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the full team that usually accompanies ministers are not here, but the agencies and the rest of their team are on Zoom and on call to answer whatever queries arise. The absence of any member of the ministry's team is not an indication of a minister or the government's failure to place importance on any area of their ministry. So I want us, and that is an understanding, I'm saying it for the benefit of members who were not here at the beginning when we laid this down. Thank you. Minister, you proceed, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, colleagues. Joining me this morning is the Minister of State in the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, the Permanent Secretary, Mistress Henry Martin, the Head of the Finances of the Ministry, Mrs. Anisha McFarlane, and Mr. Junior Rose, specialist within the ministry, to lend support. Madam Chair, the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development and Rural Development continue to pursue its goal in fulfilling its mandate to ensure that the efforts of the portfolio entity are aligned to the policies of the government. The government in the new administration have added the responsibility of rural development to the ministry, which speaks of the importance that the government is placing on rural development and the intent of the administration to respond to the definition of rural development has been outlined by the World Bank. It is important, Madam Chair and colleagues, that we understand the concept of rural development. And over the years, we have seen a decline in the improvement of rural communities and infrastructure. The recognition of that has been appreciated by the government, and therefore we have this new area of responsibility, which in the sectorial debate later on in this cycle of presentation, I will speak specifically to projects which we will initiate under this new dispensation. The ministry continues to provide service through fire safety and protection, to include the construction and rehabilitation of stations and the acquisitions of firefighting gear, equipment, etc. Waste management, enforcement, community development and empowerment to include local economic development and social programs. The social protection includes establishment of care facilities for the homeless, disaster management and mitigation, local governance including local roads, building approval, rural water supply, rural electrification and house wiring. The ministry strategically articulates its priorities within areas within the context of the limited resources and greater restrictions on the expenditure. The 21-22 financial year special focus will be placed on social protection programs, rural water supply, rural electrification, public cleansing, and infrastructure, including road improvement. The effective social protection program, Madam Chair, the enhancement of the delivery of social assistance services and program continue through the rehabilitation and maintenance of infrastructure to support registered temporary poor and the homeless. The ministry currently provides budgetary support to the Montego Bay Street People Program, the Murray Atkins Night Shelter, 6 other shelters, 7 drop-in center, and other feeding programs which operate across the island. Additional support is also provided to the poor and destitute through the Outdoor Poor Program, as well as provisions in respect of indigent housing. Rural water supply, the National Water Sector Policy and Implementation Plan of 2019, which is aimed to guide the provisions of universal access to safe potable water to all Jamaicans by 2030. And this is a mandate that has been fully restored to the Ministry of Local Government. So therefore, Madam Chair, the priority of the government is to improve the availability of portable and other means of water to the critical areas of Jamaica that lack the resources in a consistent way. Rural electrification and housing to empower communities with energy by providing affordable access to electrical supplies while contributing to the nation's economic growth and rural development. And I must say, Madam Chair, just as a form of information on this project, it is not the intention of government to provide these services, and when persons access these services, they forget their obligation to the Jamaica Public Service Company. So when we wire and put in the infrastructure, we are expecting persons to pay for these services. Madam Chair, the National Solid Waste Management Authority continues in its effort to reduce the pile-up of garbage across the country, and we will continue the efforts. The upgrading and development to address the parochial roads, drains and market continue to be a priority of the government. So, Madam Chair, colleagues, with these very brief remarks, we will now be open to the committee for its examination, for want of a better word. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. Madam Chair, The argument can be made that local governance and the network of local authorities have a direct impact on our families, communities, institutions, and our nation. For this reason, we must ensure that good governance infrastructure is in place and functional in all our agencies. I have examined the estimate of expenditure of 2021-22 as aligned by the Ministry of Finance and Planning. And I have questions, and Chairman and Minister, there's a lot of questions, but time will not allow me to go through. So I will just quickly start, because I see you speed up with your opening remarks. I will do the same.
But broad enough.
Is there a minister? Is there a projected amount for staff retention and retirement? Has the ministry completed its strategic plan? And this is it 7200 Ed 4. Is the monitoring of the local government reform process is still ongoing? So you can just answer those and then we'll move forward.
Okay, I will answer the last question you posed. Yes, the monitoring of the local government reform program is an ongoing situation. We have seen improvements in those areas. We have strengthened the unit to respond in a more positive way to the question of the development, and you would have seen certain initiatives that have been put in place within the last administration, which speaks to the continuation of the reforms. We can look at what has taken place in terms of giving the Portmore Municipal Council the recognition in terms of what the reforms call for, and the ongoing establishment and functioning of the parish development committees, which were added to the ministry, which has now become a focus. You will have seen the reform in the building bills, with the establishment of the various committees that monitors various sections of the 3 strategic laws that were passed in this House in 2015. So the answer to your question, yes, it is still continuing, and local government reform is a process that continues on a daily basis.
But you know, Minister, I remembered when I was there and we looked at the town centers to ensure that we create town centers. And I'm not too certain if we have gone anywhere further than where we stopped the last time. And it is very important, especially some of these towns now have literally almost outgrown their capacity. And therefore, really, we need to put in place services so that they will not have to go to the central part, but to stay into these town centers and get the same kind of service that the municipalities offer.
And that is why rural development is important, because it speaks strategically to what the intent of the government is in order to arrest the migration from our urban and rural communities in rural Jamaica. And as I said before, we'll be rolling out a program that will speak to that area that you just raised.
Okay. And I have some concerns in regards to that and recommendations too. I do not know if it would be useful for you to get.
Well, you know, the government is open, and we, as you rightly said, local government is that vehicle that is responsible, that touch the lives of every Jamaican, and we are not far from that belief, and we will be willing to invite you as the opposition spokesperson and local government to come and share with us the ideas that you have that will be able to strengthen the efforts of the government. No, man, she'll get more than lunch. The other question you asked is, you asked the question about staffing.
Yes.
All allocations for the retired benefits for the local authorities is in place. Is in place.
Is in place?
Right, and there is no areas of shortage that we are experiencing, that we take pride, especially in those persons who have served local government over the years. So when it comes for them to receive these benefits, we take special care in that area. So if you know of any issues that are outstanding, you could bring it to my attention and we will respond to it.
Thank you very much, Minister. But you know, I would prefer if it was done in a uniform way, whereby you know exactly from municipality to municipality in terms of how they are, the timeline given. Because I can tell you that while probably centrally it is smooth running, but when it reaches to the local municipalities where they can get some information, and that's where they start to query about their benefits, that is where they start having the challenges. And therefore, I believe that probably more information and probably a little bit better education in terms of before they leave, what is the procedure, so that they will be able to prepare themselves mentally, what time frame and the procedure, because probably some of it comes out of anxiety.
All right, what I do know, member, is that prior to your departure, or the individual's departure, the process should commence well in advance, and that information be forwarded to the ministry for the necessary things to be done. What I think we need to do, and the case I've just indicated, that we can just reaffirm and strengthen that with the CEOs, so that that is put in place, so that it makes the departure much smoother without any hassle at all.
Thank you, Minister.
What was the other question?
How is it? Oh, but it is answered, so I would just move on,
All
Minister,
right.
in the interest of time. Pre-investment planning. I think it is Ed 198. I'm not too certain. The pre-investment planning.
You want to know?
Yes. What are the various projects that has been identified for the next 2 fiscal years? Can you tell me that now? And have plans being prepared for these projects and the budgetary breakdown?
Remember, the rural water, as I indicated, has just been added to the ministry since the last election. And that project is an ongoing project, and that amount is specifically for rural water in programs that have been designed, established before, and programs that will continue. So this allocation within this year's budget will the activity supports the project planning preparation for the new rural water supply project, which will be funded by way of a loan from the Caribbean Development Bank. The project is currently before PIMSEC for approval, and the project will cover at least 20 rural communities across Jamaica which are experiencing poor or no water services. The project will address the inadequate supply in these communities, as well as provide rainwater harvesting solutions in communities that have no alternative water system. An assessment of climate change vulnerability and the development of climate change resilience solutions are an integral component of this project.
Yeah. But just a quick follow-up in terms of the fees that supposed to be collected from the local municipalities. Is it still in existence?
Yeah.
The fees that we used to get from rural water.
What I'm being told is that there has been a slacking up of it, and the new board and Minister of State who has responsibility for rural water will be reviewing that and working with rural water. But just to give you, Madam Member and colleagues, just a breakdown of some of the communities, and I'm not going to go through all of it. You know, Watermount, Coral Gardens, Flower Hill, Hatfield, Bath, Brandon Hill, Portland Cottage, Rocky Point, you know, and some more, Pear Tree Grove, etc. You know, a significant number of communities have been identified and have been slated to benefit from this project.
Okay, and I would probably just
from the $215 million.
Okay.
That is present.
Okay, so it is 215 million.
Yeah.
Yes.
215 million.
Okay. I'm going to turn now to physical planning and development, Minister.
Yes.
And I think you can follow me based on what I'm doing here. Can you say if there is any, because I listen to you and I have a passion for rural development, and I believe I'm happy to see it falls on the local government, because it is something that locally is a place for it to be taken care of in a meaningful way, and therefore I believe it is at the right ministry. However, what I would want to know, I hear a little voice say it's not the right minister, but I'm not going to agree with that.
I don't want to hear from you.
Are rural physical development plans being developed as we speak? Because if it is a new entity, not that it is really new in the sense of we knowing that there's a rural development, but coming through the local government, do you have any physical development planned, or you're going to roll out this kind of duties now and functions that you have? Are the plans for the growth and development of our town centers being prepared? I asked that before. And I would love to hear downtown Kingston, the redevelopment. What is the status of the plan? Because it is long overdue for these areas. And believe me, Minister, I was looking forward especially for downtown. And I know that there are some things being done, but not enough based on the kind of rollout that we heard.
All right, let me respond to the physical plan. Remember, there is the Sustainable Development Program that is presently in shape, that is taking place, that is going on through the various municipalities across the country. I just explained that one of the new concepts of rural development is to upgrade selected areas across the country. We have selected 5 parishes that will commence the pilot project for this physical infrastructural development.
Just repeat that for me. 5 projects.
5 parishes.
Parishes.
5 parishes that have been selected, where those parishes the areas will benefit from infrastructure, water, light, community facilities, indigent housing facilities, community parks, social infrastructure, just sanitary conveniences. Just 3 weeks ago, I grown with the most honorable Prime Minister for one such of the community responses, community parks, which is going to be a critical part of that social component of community development, infrastructure development. So where we go into communities, and let me make the point, member, that we are not imposing on communities.
Right.
We will be going in once those communities have been identified, look at the needs, speaks to the individual. The Social Development Commission is mandated to be doing that survey in the area selected so far. And we will be taking what the communities feel would be best to strengthen their capacity for community development building, and we will use that as a template in the program.
But you know, Minister, I would love for you to include, like I heard about the parks and so on, zinc fence removal. Because if you really want to upgrade and to let the communities look like it is not really the shanty towns, because the people behave sometimes based on how their community look, and that is why I'm so anxious and eager that local authority take the responsibility in terms of making sure that we do and make sure these communities are safe. But just to...
We can add that as a component, member, but there is a program through the Ministry of, I think.
And you know what that program gives.
Yeah. But we will look at it, and you must remember that we have to be balancing what we have and how we're going to spend the limited resources that we have. But it is something that we will take into consideration.
Okay. Thank you very much, Minister.
You spoke about downtown Kingston.
Yeah.
The UDC
yes.
is presently continuing its engagement about downtown Kingston. You would have seen some improvements. The mayor and the KSMAC has designated some areas where murals have been placed, roads have been fixed in a way that gives a certain lift to downtown Kingston. We have also seen that more development is taking place, more businesses are returning to downtown Kingston in a more meaningful way. And the UDC, as I said before, as a part of the building of the new parliament, there will be an expansion of the downtown areas where the road networks. Presently, the National Water Commission is running pipelines in downtown Kingston that will going to improve the distribution of water, which has been a critical problem in Kingston, and that is ongoing. So that forms a part of the ongoing development of downtown Kingston.
But just quickly, before I saw where Member Hannah want to but can you give us the 5 parishes, or do you want to wait until your presentation, or it is available now
for? So when I speak, well, I hear a member just called Clarendon is correct. I think St. Catherine, Hanover, St. Thomas, and which is the next? I don't remember the 5th one.
And just quickly though, Minister.
I think, I don't remember which one. I just remember those 4 after.
There was any timeline given in terms of the phases to be done in terms of downtown and its development? There was any timeline given of like a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3?
Well, remember, you must appreciate, and this committee should be cognizant that the redevelopment of downtown Kingston has been a sore point.
Right.
Since 1989, we have seen various attempts to deal with the issue of downtown Kingston since 1989. The UDC and the KSMAC have been working closely, and we are seeing a timetable where the assessment in terms of information has been completed. And as I said before, the running of the pipeline is one of the steps. You have noticed that the construction of building a shoreline
Yes.
on Ocean Boulevard to strengthen the coast is presently taking place with JSIF. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, after many years, finally that is coming to coming up. Grace Kennedy has opened its new executive office in downtown Kingston. So we are seeing developments taking place. A lot more needs to be done. I know that the housing situation is of grave concern, and that in itself will form a part of the new round of developments that will take place. And we are hoping that we will see more private sector. We have the waterfront now being fully occupied and other things taking place. Yes, so there are things happening, but it is not happening at the pace that we want to see. And it would be remiss of me not to mention that there are concerns about what goes on in the market district and the fact that there is still a certain level of indiscipline within the market district.
Yes. Thank you.
Minister, I want to move you out of the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation and St. Catherine, because those two municipal corporations have the bulk of the constituencies. Yesterday, when Minister Hill was here, I asked a question about the trucking of water. That allocation has been reduced from 35 million to 15 million. And if you were to just look at 15 million across 63 constituencies, that's 238,000 for the year as an allocation for the trucking of water. And for those of us who have rural constituencies, based on how much it costs to truck up a load of water, that will last you 5 days. What he actually said is that will augment the Ministry of Local Government's allocation for the trucking of water. And may I look through the book, but may I send a allocation for trucking of water anywhere under the Ministry of Local Government. What I see is under rural water and the tanks, etc. So I'm asking you very humbly, sir, what are you going to do about the trucking of water, particularly to your wayside tanks and public tanks in the various divisions? Because as you rightly said, you're going to be upgrading some tanks, but I don't know if the 215 million that you have here has within it a line item, which I don't think, for the trucking of water. No, so I'm asking you, where is it coming from?
It doesn't, and we are cognizant of that. We have been able to provide resources to the municipal corporations for the trucking of water, and we will continue to do so. We can rely on funding from the equalization fund. We can find some funding from property taxes, depending on the amount. One of the things we have been doing, remember, is that we have been encouraging the municipal corporations to procure water trucks. So, yes, and some so far have bought water trucks, which the ministry have in return reimburse the money for the purchase of the truck. So it is our intention to ensure that at least all 14 municipalities have a brand new water truck. And we are supplementing that with tanks from Rapid Response, which we now have responsibility for, that we have been using and putting these things in place. So while there is no line item within this year's, within the new year expenditure, it will not prevent us from doing what is necessary. And I know we will be able to reach out to the Minister of Finance when it becomes necessary for that kind of assistance.
Can I just make a suggestion?
Yeah, yes, member.
Because I know how important it is for all of us for rural development, and that's critical. And there are still places in the hills of Jamaica that just don't have access to water. I think rather than relying on the kindness or generosity of the Minister of Finance and making it that appeal when it's necessary, I think there needs to be a policy coming from your ministry as to water resource allocations, and not look at the equalization fund, etc., because I guarantee you each municipal corporation, according to the collection of property taxes, don't get an equitable distribution across the board. And so whereas in Kingston you might not need the trucking of water, in St. Anne you might need it more, and we don't have, or Manchester or Trelawney, and those corporations don't have the same disposable income to be able to take it out of their equalization fund, especially if you have retaining wall breakaways and you have different things that are more that are emergencies. So I'm asking you, Minister, can you please, before you come to make your budget presentation, see if you can recalibrate in a mechanism that looks at trucking of water as a real issue, and don't wait until it becomes a necessity.
Just to add to, I'm going to move on, but just to add to what the member just said, we need also to ensure that areas that cannot get water, that we provide them with tanks. I remember in last year budget, Minister, we had 2,140 tanks. I think about 2,140 tanks were supposed to be distributed among the various municipalities. Can you give me any update on how far you have reached?
All right. We started, but COVID came and we had to put some things on hold.
Yeah.
We will continue that. And just to respond to the member from Southeast St. Anne, we do have a water policy within the ministry. And in the last 4 years, we built in excess of 12 water shops across the country. And these water shops have really been of benefit, and we are expecting to roll out some more in over the next 2 years. We recognize the challenges with water, and the municipal corporations have, for the better part, been responding in a positive way. They do, however, member, have limited resources that they can pull from for the trucking of water. But what we probably need to do is to have a more sustained program. And this is something that the minister who has responsibility, the state minister who also has responsibility for water, will sit. And we now have a unit within the ministry, rural development, which comes with a certain level of technical competence at a level that will help us to expand on what you have just articulated, which we will do. Okay? Yeah, Mike.
Rehabilitation and maintenance. National Heroes Park. I know that there is a big plan for it in terms of ensuring that we have a modernized parliament and so forth. But the fact is that area is really under the jurisdiction of local authority in terms of the planning and so forth. What role is the ministry playing in terms of the development plan in that area?
Well, the ministry has a critical role. Remember, I chaired the committee named by cabinet to undertake the process of the approval and the debate out of Parliament, working closely with the UDC on the matter. National Heroes Park presently is owned by the KSMC, but is maintained by the National Solid Waste Management Authority. The overall development of Hero Circle will form a part of the program that will go hand in hand with the building of the new Parliament building. So there is a definite program for Heroes Park that will form a part, as I said before, of that wider development of Hero Circle when the Parliament building will be constructed.
But are you going to get a direct budget in terms of the maintenance to upgrade the park? Because we're not talking about the building now. Well, in your budget present,
well, there is an amount that is provided for the National Solid Waste. About over 750,000.
750,000.
Over 750. That is provided for routine maintenance by the National Solid Waste Management Authority of USA.
So therefore you are saying then that the Parliament, in terms of making sure that we put in all the other infrastructures, it will be the UDC who is going to carry out that major.
Remember now, there is the section of the Parliament which is run by the Jamaica Heritage Trust, where the heroes and those persons are buried, which is maintained, and then the wider part has that responsibility of the National Solid Waste Management Authority. But when the Parliament, the areas for the Parliament is done, that will fall directly under whichever portfolio responsibility will have direct for the Parliament. So I am giving the assurance to the committee that National Heroes Park will be upgraded. All areas of around Heroes Circle will be upgraded. It is a part of the concept of the government, not just to put down a building, but to make the park accessible to visitors, to allow games to be played in certain sections where persons can go and sit. There has been a presentation made by the UDC on it. There has been community consultation around what is expected to take place in National Heroes Park.
I'm looking forward, Minister. I'm going to move now to the support to local authorities and municipalities. Minister, I do not know in terms of with this new pandemic and the kind of way in which the businesses are done in the various municipalities. If there's any online payment being made now that you can access online payment to especially property taxes. I do not know if because of how it is situated, there can be any kind of software put in place in order to eliminate the amount of persons who would want to go, because I do not know what it is in terms of your compliance. I was told the last time that it was about 40% of compliance, and that was, in my view, based on when I left here, was a little higher, but they were anticipating up to 75% of compliance. So therefore you'd have dropped about 30 or 35% of compliance. And I would gather that persons probably do not want to do the traveling, because most of persons who own these properties, sometimes they are of age. Is there any mechanism put in place so that you will not lose the revenue that you really need now, and at the same time you'll be able to get the revenue to carry on the business of the various municipalities?
Okay, let me deal with property taxes. Remember now, we are not responsible.
I'm just using that as an example.
Okay, but in regards to property taxes, we do have a very close and positive working relationship with TAJ. There are also 2 tax mobiles that is owned by the Ministry of Local Government that goes out on a daily basis across communities, not just in town centers, but in deep rural areas, and we do collections of property taxes. And that is helping also to assist in that. There are a few other municipal corporations who are pursuing the bill payment system, the online payment, and using other means of payment. That is being looked into, and that is something that we are going to be expanding, because this is the way in which now payments are being made right across. So that is something we are looking at. And COVID has brought a different thinking as far as businesses is operating across the country, and the municipal corporation will definitely fall in line to ensure that is done.
And just quickly, Minister, let me just move quickly in terms of the improvement of road and structure, the road infrastructure. Minister, almost every road in my constituency is parochial road. And I don't think they ask the councillors about these roads. They direct the questions and concerns more so to the members of parliament. There is no way you can tell them that this is a parochial. They don't even understand what you're talking about, because they believe they elected you to represent, and you should not be telling them about whose responsibilities. Therefore, Minister, I believe, and I'm very passionate about this, we need to really look and do some serious feasibility studies in regards to these roads. And we don't just give roads to persons who probably speak the loudest, some who probably is very close to the minister, and I say it with no kind, because I know you, and those who close to the mayor. It cannot, Minister, there must be a comprehensive plan now, so that we will know where there are roads in the different various municipalities that need attention. And it must not just be brought to the attention by the councillor, but we must have officers who are going out there to ensure that they can come back with a report. And I know it is on paper that should be done. But I am asking you for you to be able to have a full knowledge, so that you don't feel good to send out certain amount of money, and then you said, yes, we send it out for parochial roads. And then you see a lot of placards all over the place because of the deplorable conditions that these roads are in. So, Minister, I would like to find out if you have any way in identifying these roads, and if you have any kind of mechanism, instead of me just coming to Begwa Road, that you will say, yes, not because it is a green or a orange or a J or a P. This road is essential to the upliftment of these communities. This road is essential for production. This road is essential to make sure that this community grow, the communities grow, that you will be able to go or send to the councils, or when the councils are meeting, that they look at these roads as priorities.
Thank you, member, for the question. And, you know, the question of roads have been a burning issue. I have been meeting with the mayors and the CEOs over the last couple of months. And I think we met in December last year. And I outlined the concerns as it relates to our road infrastructure. We are presently responsible for over 22,000 kilometers of road network across the country. Many of the roads have fallen into disrepair. Some have disappeared.
Yes.
Over many years of neglect. We are now creating a new database. We are spending some money. We are using a geo-mapping system in mapping the roads.
Okay.
And when funds are being disbursed from the ministry, we have set some conditions as to how these funds are to be sent and based on what. And we are seeing a lot of the MCs now falling in place, responding to this. There are some funds that was made available. We spent some $239 million in this financial year, just coming to an end, where we indicated that roads that were badly affected during the rains, and that this money can't be splintered up. So you can't give one councillor 300,000 and one 1,700,000. We want to see at least 2 to 3 good roads with sidewalks and drains, and we have insisted on that. And I must commend the MCs for responding to that demand. We know the challenges, and I get the complaints on a daily basis, and we are putting in the mechanism to ensure. But it is important that we also recognize that the amount that we receive for roads is very limited. We get 66.3% of the proceeds from the motor vehicle licensing and all associated fees with motor vehicles. And that has to be shared amongst the municipalities. And we do get support from the Ministry of Finance through the Consolidated Fund for Road Maintenance, which again is not where we want to, but we are cognizant of the challenges. And that is why we have been putting in the various mechanisms that we have been putting in place to ensure that we see and get value for the limited resources in which we have. So we are redefining the road program and not only relying on requests, but using data to help us to guide the process as we grapple with the challenges that we are facing.
Quickly now, public cleansing and garbage, public cleansing, we'd want to look at the gully cleaning. I think there was a program in place for gully cleaning and maintenance. I do not know if you have a budget still for it, or it was just a one-off, or it was something that should have been continued.
Again, we had to reassess because of COVID. There is something that we are presently working on, and remember, let me take off the mask to speak about this one, because let me say, while it is the obligation of the government to provide funding to collect and to clean garbage from taxpayers' money, we can no longer collect taxes in the amount that is required. If the population continue to behave in the manner in which they are behaving. Because when you look at the gullies, when you look at the drains, the roads, you know, and it is, and I'm not saying that the National Solid Waste Management Authority is equipped fully. We still need more trucks, and more trucks are coming. But if we can't get the public, the people, to buy into that, you know, cleanliness is godliness, you know, it is. And when these things happen, government is blamed that we are not doing anything. But we have done a lot. With the National Solid Waste Management Authority, within the last 2 years, have collected over 50 million tons of garbage. And they will continue to do that. But the more garbage they collect, is the more persons continue to dispose of their garbage in our drains and in our gullies. And I want to say to this honorable house, to this committee today, if we give every community in Jamaica a garbage truck, if the minds of the people don't change, then it will make no difference in what we're doing. And I feel strongly about it, because you clean the gully today, and by the truck leave, it gone right back to what it was before.
And Minister, I would recommend that these gullies, especially those that are causing a big strain on the budget, that we put some cameras in place. Because the municipal police, you know, I am a little worried, because I remembered in the reform process that the municipal police, you should even have a municipal court to take out all of these things from that is parochial out of the big court and let them get to proceed with big issues, and that we would have our own municipal court, and that way you would increase revenue, because in the beginning you would be able to get some revenue, and then probably afterward, based on force, they would stop. And that budget that you have, that big budget, it would have been eliminated or used for something else. So I strongly believe, Minister.
It is a sad day, though, you know, member.
It's very sad, but
when you have to take people to court to live clean, it's a sad day. You know, we should never reach that state as a country, but I appreciate what you are saying, and I understand what you are saying. The National Solid Waste Management Authority is working. There are plans to appoint gully wardens, and we know the gullies. There's a program that we'll be rolling out later in the budget presentation. I've been in discussions with Minister Clark and the National Solid Waste Management Authority on this program. But just to say that the work of the National Solid Waste Management Authority continues despite the challenges that they face. But I can again, as I've done on many occasions, you know, seek the support of the Jamaican people in being more responsible in disposing of their waste.
Probably can do a little bit more on the public education side and do it in the community instead of the national one, because sometimes they don't believe that it relates to them. But you know, if you go back in the communities and do the education, it might help. But just to speak to solid waste now, in terms of because Minister, don't care what we are going to say. There are some people who should know better that is not doing better. And I now speak to some of these businesses and big businesses. There was commercial collection. Is that still ongoing?
Yes, there are commercial collections still taking place, and I also can tell you that quite a number of commercial establishments have been taken to court and have been paying some hefty fines for illegal disposing of their garbage. So there is still that aspect of the commercial collection that still takes place, member.
And you know, Minister, I'm going to just make a recommendation. It might not something that you can take on right away, but in respect to the garbage trucks, there are some roads that they have to deal with, and those trucks can't even turn. When they are going on the road, you have to remove every other vehicle because they are big. I am recommending that, going forward.
That is being done.
That is being done?
Yes, that is being done.
Okay, thank you.
In the new dispensation, they are going to be looking at trucks, certain size trucks that will fit lanes and certain areas.
Wonderful.
So that is a part of the whole realignment of the fleet of trucks that will be coming.
I'm just winding up now, Minister. Disaster preparedness. Do you have a parish disaster preparedness plan? In this when I look at COVID, not that anyone could be prepared enough for it, but it now brings me to the point whereby I understand now that disaster preparedness have a critical role to play in any development and any country. And I would just want to find out the disaster preparedness plan. Do you have a parish disaster preparedness plan that is vetted and is up to the standard that can meet the national standard?
Under the Sendai Agreement, this is an international group that we are a party to.
Yeah.
That is a requirement. We do have parish disaster committees in all municipalities across the country.
I know that.
It would be fair to say that you have some who are stronger and more active than some. We have been streamlining them, working closely with the ADPEM and with the municipal corporations to strengthen those areas. And we, as I said before, as a part of the Sendai Agreement, we have to ensure that these are functioning organizations which have a structure which is chaired by the mayor and includes almost all the major players within each municipality. And that is why we have been able to respond in the way that we have been with the COVID response in the various parishes, using that extended mechanisms of the parish disaster committee. And they are also operating under the new act which was passed in this House in 2015.
In terms of rural electrification, because I see where you have it, you are now responsible for rural electrification. Do you have a budget for it?
Yes, we do have money in the budget for rural electrification, which there are some of the projects which were started, which will continue. We are revisiting what exists to see how best we can initiate the program and to make the program more meaningful under the whole construct of the rural development structure that we are now looking at. We are now looking to get in the requisite staffing for the entity. And in response to your question, there is some $245 million that is in this new financial year that has been set aside by the government to continue the program which was started. And I want to commend Minister Williams, under whose initiative that program started in her ministry when she was at the Ministry of Science and Technology. So we do in fact have a program, and we are redefining the program as we speak.
Just to just ask if there is anything to do with house wiring, that anything is in the budget for that?
The provisions will be for house wiring and the running of extensions, so that communities who actually want the service from JPS, but because the distance to carry the service is so far, what this new initiative will do is to bring the power line closer to the community. Yes. So we're working on that. There's a template that was there, and we are strengthening that template now. And with this additional 245 million that we have plus, and we have been working closely with JC in implementing this program.
Wonderful. Community development. In terms of the municipal police, do you think, based on the community development and so forth, if there's going to be any need for additional municipal police, or the quota that you have now is effective?
We are seeing member requests coming in from several municipalities for increasing the personnel on the ground. I have my own reservations about it. I believe that the municipal police, as presently structured, we are revisiting now the structure of the municipal police across. And if the truth be told, remember, some municipal police don't command the respect of persons. So you find that it brings some level of undermining the system. And we are presently reviewing the structure. And they are going to be critical, because in the days gone by when you used to have the auxiliary police, that is the red seam and you have the blue seam, those blue seam policemen were responsible for maintaining law and order across town centers. We don't have that anymore. And the role of the municipal police is going to become more important even now than it has been before. And that is why the program is under review. Again, Minister Davis has responsibility for that, and I'm expecting that by the middle of the new financial year, we will have something more to roll out as it relates to the municipal police.
Minister, see, I do not know in terms of, probably if I'm reading correctly, but in terms of local water supply, as to where you have a heading of COVID response, you can classify that for me or clarify?
That is an error. That is
an error?
Yeah, to be correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so you make a note of that in terms of... Now I move to something that is very passionate to me, because when I leave local government, that was something that I was passionate about, and minister. But that was part of the reform process. You would have administrative management, but there was nothing that there would be an entity on their own in terms of based on entrenchment. I don't know if you want to speak to that now, but I intend to take this matter.
Well, there is no... Those policies were never policies of this administration.
Right. No, but it was part of the reform. So I'm saying you abolished that.
But the reform...
Yes.
There have been changes to the reform. And the changes that were made to the reform at that time speak specifically to using, and let me say that Portmore was a pilot project to see how that direct electing of mayor would work. Portmore has its challenges, but it is coming on. But that is not a consideration now for this administration in terms of looking at the other municipalities for the election of mayors. I think we need to strengthen the capacity of the local authorities much more than has been done, to strengthen them some more, to allow them to take that other step. So it is something that, as I said before, the reform is a process that is continuing. Okay? So it is something that can be looked at down the road.
And you know what I'm very happy for? I see you have something in the budget for fire hydrant. But I remember at one point it did not have any parent, because everywhere you send it, they said it is not their responsibility.
That is totally different now.
Yes.
That is totally
and in respect to the repairs and so on, do you believe that you will be able, based on what you have in your budget, to adequately repair enough so that we will not have any kind of disaster because there is no hydrant? And I am closing, Minister, to just say to you that there's a lot of work to be done in local government. It is from the home to the tomb. And therefore, if you get local government right, you do not have to do anything more for the human being. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and since 2016 we have made tremendous strides in improving local government. We have brought a certain level of respect and transparency to the process of local government. A lot more needs to be done. The Jamaica Fire Brigade has chosen, based on their assessment, the hydrants which they consider to be priority hydrants. And it is based on those assessments that those repairs and maintenance will be done. And that is a process that they have started since 2016. And they will continue that process. We have now cemented that relationship between the National Water Commission and the Jamaica Fire Brigade as it comes on to the maintenance and servicing of hydrants across the
Minister, two quick questions.
One question, Leader of Opposition.
Two quick questions. One is, when might we see the rollout of the house wiring program, which I may add, I'm very pleased to see that it is now given a substantive role and place where I believe it should have been from the beginning, which is in the local government. When might we see a rollout of that program? Is it post-budget? Is it
hopefully, remember, by the sectoral presentation, the minister will be in a position to outline more details on the program. Because, as I said, we have to know, remember we have 17 new members of parliament, and we should afford them the opportunity as elected members of parliament to have an input into our allocations within the areas that they are representing. All those allocations are going to be spent. So that program is going to be rolled out, and the minister with responsibility for that in the ministry will speak to that at the time.
Finally, Minister, I saw your passion for the development taking place downtown, and I think understandably so. How does the suggestion or the move to reduce the urban incentive, how would that impact the pace of development?
Well, you know, that program still exists, you know, where if you invest in those areas, you get, you know, a rebate or something on the taxes that you pay. And that is why a lot of persons are actually coming back in downtown Kingston. And I don't believe that there are hardly any more space that is really left downtown. What I think needs now is just for us now to continue the program at a pace. And some of it is going to take time. Some of the work has started. But I just want to make the final point on this, that the survival of downtown Kingston cannot be predicated on the party in power. And that is what has been the destruction of downtown Kingston. Because every time there is a change in an administration, the work that was started on downtown Kingston ceased. And that has been the failure for the development of downtown Kingston, because the word continuity is not spelled the same way when one party is in power. And that is one of the challenges that downtown Kingston have been experiencing since, yes. Yes. Precisely. Yes.
The continued development.
No, but I'm saying the it is continuing because you still have private investors still investing in downtown Kingston. And I did make the point that you can hardly get a proper space in downtown Kingston down on the waterfront. A lot is happening. A lot is happening. And it will continue to happen.
With that said, I think we've had quite a comprehensive review of this ministry. Member, one final question. We're 3 hours behind.
Minister, the allocation for rural electrification, I see that you are spending 45 million, but you have appropriations in aid of 50 million. Are those funds the funds from the JPSCO that would normally flow back through this process, and why are you not spending all of it, and why only 50 million at this time? I would anticipate there'll be a lot more. And finally, if I could just, I know it's not in your thing, but that ban on funeral, I hope you are going to address it. It is creating havoc out there now.
All right, let me respond to the latter that you raised. We met with the undertakers this week. They put some suggestions on the table for us to consider, for the government to consider. Those will be taken back to the cabinet for the cabinet's consideration. While we appreciate that, and it is also the wrong signal that was sent yesterday, when over 200 and odd persons congregated at a funeral establishment to participate in a wake, although that there's a ban. So what it is telling you, member, is that there is a kind of scant, disregard for the process. And you cannot be encouraging when actions like those, because if a government bows to that kind of pressure, the government is going to lose its legitimacy. And the government cannot afford under these circumstances. So we will look at what has been put on the table and take it under consideration.
And make sure that the directors, the funeral directors, must be accountable.
Right.
Must be accountable.
Right. The other question you asked, member, was in relation to the 50 million. Yes, that is a return back from the JPS, and that amount is a part of the now I'm being told that this 50 million is a provisional amount. There is still some verification being done as to the exact amount that is owing. But this amount, member, has been now placed into the appropriation fund. So we do have some room based on what is up. Okay? All right? Thank you, Madam Chair, on behalf of the team, and thanks to my colleagues for the questions.
Just before you go, Minister, members, we're now going to put the heads 72,000, pages 1 to 28. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. Head 72,000C, pages 1 to 15. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it.
And Madam Chair, just to make sure that the correction in terms of the COVID, the line,
The COVID
is
relief
taken in consideration.
amendment.
Yeah.
We put the amendment.
It's being done by Finance, Madam Chair, in response to the correction that the member is speaking about. That is being done by the Ministry of Finance.
Minister, we have not as yet got a confirmation from the Minister of Finance. Have you received a message? Because it's important that we have the confirmation.
Can be taken at a later time after even the ministry's presentation. You can recommit it.
My understanding that it will be done my understanding at the Finance Committee amendment, it will be taken at that time. But how can we proceed now? Can we grant the...
If it's not here, we can't approve what is not here. We really can't do it now. So,
No, the question I was asking, Madam Chair, could we approve the other aspects that is not in this bill?
Yes, we can approve the others.
And read some comments.
If Ministry of Finance approves, then we can. So we can do the amendment for COVID relief which was the page that dealt with. Where did we? What we can do is we can approve the heads that we have, and when you get the amendment, we can recommit this and have it
Much
approved.
appreciated, Madam Chair.
Beg your pardon?
I said much appreciated.
Yes. So as soon as you get it, if you hear from them or if they communicate, we will do just that.
Okay, thank you.
So we will approve as is the 72,000C. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much, Minister of State and the team.
Thanks.
When you do 7 The war must be fought with a strong attack, cause we've reached too far to turn back. Without authority and power is a race without respect.
And it has been destroyed by lightning, earthquake and thunder. I say, what? When the 2 sevens clash, say what? What a live by when the 2 sevens clash.
So you see. Blessed is he who hears these words of the prophecy and keep it therein. And I want to tell you, at the age of 11, Marcus Garvey prophesied Spanish Town was going to meet Kingston in 1977.
Former Permanent Secretary.
Members, are we ready? Welcome the Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce and his Minister of State, Dr. Dunn, along with the PS, CIS. The members of his team, welcome to the deliberations of the Finance Committee. Minister Shaw, I will take your directions as to how you wish to proceed, and you can indicate. We'll work along with you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, I'd like to just ask your permission to give my condolences to the family of a former acting permanent secretary in my ministry, Rose Forbes, who died recently. So we ask God's blessing on her soul. I also want to acknowledge Minister Dunn, who was here, as well as our new permanent secretary, who just joined us on Monday. Mrs. Sansia Bennett Templar. And of course, it's appropriate that I acknowledge my outgoing permanent secretary, who is also here with us, Mr. Derman Spence. And we have other members of the team. So I will start, Madam Chairman, with a brief opening statement, and then take it from there. The Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce oversees a portfolio of 18 divisions and 1 department, 9 portfolio bodies that are partially or fully funded through the Consolidated Fund, 6 statutory bodies, as well as 3 public investment aid projects. The ministry is tasked with supporting several of the critical growth-inducing sectors and remains the driver of industrial development in the manufacturing and service sector, as well as the enabler of the business environment to ensure that the local industries embrace the opportunities to strengthen both the value and supply chains within Jamaica. Therefore, our strategic priorities, policies, programs, and key initiatives are intended to grow the manufacturing, investment, services, commerce, and trade sectors. Notwithstanding the current pandemic, which has negatively affected the economy, we were able to remain on target for most of our key programs, including the development of the ministry's policy, legislative and planning framework, the industrial development and regulation program geared toward the development of MSMEs, promotion of entrepreneurship, and the strengthening of regulatory and compliance activities. These major initiatives are the critical pillars that foster a conducive environment for stimulating economic growth and development. The Consumer and Public Protection Program, geared toward monitoring commerce and trade, protecting and empowering both consumers and corporate entities, and ensuring the protection of the overall public against misuse and improper disposal of nuclear technology. The Trade Development and Promotion Program, which demonstrated strong signs of resilience, as well as the policy regulatory activities under the program, which also achieved most of its targets. In response to the economic impact, the ministry revisited our medium-term priority policies and investigated our targets under these programs to implement revised and or new initiatives geared towards this new economic landscape. Key to this landscape was the sustainability and adaptability of local MSMEs. This led to the focus on the following priority initiatives for fiscal year 2021. Strengthening of the manufacturing sector through the development and implementation of the Manufacturing Sector Growth Strategy 2025. Export promotion for MSMEs. Increased access to funds for MSMEs through the implementation of the Capital Business Loan Fund for MSMEs and strengthening the institutional capacity of MSMEs. The ministry also placed particular focus on the manufacturing and export sector and partnered with the private sector to ensure the development, monitoring, and implementation of key strategies to support the growth of this sector and the contribution to the economy. We continue to work through the manufacturing and export growth team to grow the sectors and strengthen the resilience through the implementation of key initiatives agreed with the COVID-19 Economic Recovery Task Force, which involved the private sector, including the PSO, the JMEA, and other private sector groups that were actively involved in the work of the task force. The priority engagements and plans of the ministry for this new fiscal year reflect our focus on building resilience, competitiveness, sustainability, and viability in key productive and service sectors. Consequently, the ministry approached the task of developing the policies and programs for this fiscal year with the view of realizing the synergies that are necessary to create the enabling environment to allow the appropriate mix of policies, legislation, human and capital resources, and services to yield inclusive, sustained economic growth and job creation. Through a strategic review of previous and current initiatives aimed at responding to the COVID-19 environment, the ministry has selected 8 priority areas of focus that will pivot the economy to its Vision 2020 of a Jamaica, the place of choice to do business. These areas include strengthening the national quality infrastructure towards a standards-led, market-driven economy, improving trade facilitation and maximizing opportunities for export, implementing a national investment framework, implementing the agribusiness strategy, enhancing the business environment for growth and development of the MSME sector, strengthening the resilience of select sectors for continuous growth and competitiveness, strengthening the manufacturing and service sectors, and enhancing consumer empowerment and competitiveness. As we prepare to embark on the upcoming 21-22 financial year, the ministry remains cognizant of and committed to its role in harnessing opportunities for investment and growth by facilitating investments in the manufacturing and service sector. It is against this background that we look forward to the support of this Honourable House in approving a budget that will allow the ministry to achieve the established targets towards economic growth and development. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Minister, I want to join you where you began by paying my own condolence to the former acting permanent secretary and a long-time staff member of the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, one who has made signal contribution to the ministry and to the growth and development of Jamaica's business environment. And I recognize the passing of Mrs. Rose Forbes, as you've indicated. I also want to, at the same time, welcome the new permanent secretary. She may have started on Monday, but she's no stranger to the ministry and to the work, directly into the questions, because I want to start at the beginning, which is the COVID and what the disease or the virus has done to the economy and the prospects for emerging from that shock, and critically how this budget will impact that. Will it achieve the 4% growth? So, Minister, let me start first by looking at the public bodies and looking at the 3 institutions represented there for the ministry: the Bureau of Standard, JANAC, and Exim Bank. Minister, you have indicated, and it is true, that the Bureau of Standard, if we're going to achieve growth and competitive growth, it has to be led by standards. And the Bureau of Standards role, therefore, is very critical. Among the activities there is the weights and measures. It monitors the Weights and Measures Act and ensures that the facilities are operating and properly inspected. One of the complaints I have received is from the consumer who are wondering. They've told me that they're seeing where the scales in the markets as they go to purchase, that these scales are not working. And I've had several complaints. So my question to you is, are we still engaged in a robust program of inspection under this project?
I think the short answer is yes, definitely. But it is. I will get up further elaboration for you.
Yeah, I'm sure you are, Minister. But the complaints are significant. They've been coming, asking who is monitoring. That they feel that in this period of COVID,
yes,
to be shortchanged,
yes,
at the point of sale is not a good feeling, and they're witnessing it, they're noticing it, and they're complaining. So, Minister, I want you to, if you've been doing it, I want you to up the inspection,
yes,
and pay some attention to the Weights and Measures Act as it applies.
Thank you for making that point. And in fact, ironically, I addressed the Bureau of Standards just this morning, where they have launched a new initiative in relation to the health standards in the health.
Okay, that's where I was going next.
Area. That was actually launched by
me. So let me ask that question then, since you're fresh from that meeting. The concern there is your other key agency for accreditation, the laboratories.
Yes,
the laboratories,
yeah,
private and public laboratories, are crucial to this COVID testing and helping the government to realize a program of integrity, and that one which is reliable and that will help us in our trade with other countries.
Yeah.
My understanding is that there are a number of laboratories, and it has been so in the past, and I'm hearing continuing, that a number of laboratories involved and engaged in medical testing, that a number of them are springing up to take advantage of the need for the testing, but that we have to ensure that they are conforming to the standards, because you can appreciate, Minister, if they are not doing so, the tests themselves will soon come under question, and that the Minister of Tourism is there, and he's very reliant on the fact that the passport, as we discussed, the electronic passport, their effectiveness will rely on a very robust testing program. And so the labs are key to that, Minister. And I want to again say to you that the role for JANAC,
yes,
and the accreditation and the conformity testing bodies are critical in this. And can you assure us that that is now the case? And if not, what steps will be taken to address that?
Thank you. Let me give you the assurance, first of all, that JANAC realized and saw the need to get involved, and have in fact been in touch with the Ministry of Health, and they have also agreed, and all of the persons who have applied to the Ministry of Health directly for permission for testing and so on, as now the Ministry of Health has actually sent them on to JANAC, for JANAC to ensure that they are properly outfitted, proper standards, and to give them a certification. In fact, I want to ask Dr. Dunn, who himself, I want to tell out his trade secrets, but among other things, he's a pharmacist by training. So, Doctor, maybe you'd like to give us some further elaboration.
Mr. Chairman, just like to support the Minister on the information that he has gotten delivered so far, but yes, I agree with you. JANAC has a pivotal role to play in this and have, in fact, stepped up to the task. You'd have seen that we had a press conference with a number of stakeholders, including the Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Health, and others, to assure the nation that we have the capacity within government to ensure that we have the testing and the conformity assessment that you mentioned, and the validity of those tests for persons who would require tests, especially for travel and otherwise, that they are in fact meeting the international standard. JANAC is the only accreditation body, not only in Jamaica, but in the Caribbean, that offers this service. And the Ministry of Health has partnered with us to ensure that the mandate that JANAC has is in fact carried out for Jamaica. So the assurance that the Minister gave you, I want to reiterate the assurance that we have the capacity, we have developed, and JANAC has developed a program called JANAC PAAP, which seeks to bridge that gap between the persons or the labs that are not fully certified and the labs that want to offer the COVID testing facility. Bring them up to standard in the conformity assessment side of it, and to allow them to offer this particular test that, of course, in concern and as a partnership with the Ministry of Health.
Thank you, Minister, for that assurance, because it is vital to the economic recovery.
Just want to say, under this particular program, the JANAC PAAP program, a number of entities have in fact been certified or accredited already.
All right, let me just move on. With that assurance, I'll move. The other entity in this public body document is Exim Bank. The Exim Bank, and I'm very pleased to see that Exim Bank is part of the portfolio under this ministry. But as I look at the Exim Bank, we see an institution struggling, because right now it's in deficit situation, and it has a critical role to play. As you mentioned, export growth is one of the targets. Now, if you're going to, in fact, experience export growth, not only the large businesses, but the small and medium-sized enterprises must participate in that process. And here's the critical role for the Exim Bank in not credit in trade credit and facilitation, but importantly, it has started other programs as well, like factoring, helping small businesses. Now, Minister, if the Exim Bank, which has this critical role to play, is not being put in that position to play this critical role, will you in fact see the kind of growth that we must see, not only for the large businesses, but the medium-sized enterprises, small and medium-sized enterprises, which is critical to that effort?
Yes, let me say to you that I totally agree with you that the Exim Bank at this time has an absolutely critical role to play in the transformation of our businesses and in targeting the export market. I think there are area of activity. And one of the things that I can tell you today is that the Ministry of Finance, after we approached them, has finally decided to allow some $600 million that was locked up in the defunct MIDA operation. That $600 million will now be passed on to the Exim Bank for targeting MSMEs. And of course, we have a working relationship.
Where is that reflected, Minister?
Pardon me?
Where is that reflected in this budget, the 600 million? Where
No,
would
it's
it
not, it's not in the budget. It was
So an
money-
amendment will be
It's money that was lying dormant at MIDA and at our request that we should take that money, put it to the Exim Bank to target MSMEs still. Small businesses still need support, as you have correctly said. So we are reactivating those funds through Exim Bank. And I wanted to say to you as well that part of that reactivation, we are having a strong working relationship between three agencies. The Jamaica Business Development Corporation, their job is to help with technical support for small businesses. Then JAMPRO is to work in terms of marketing, especially targeting export markets. And then within that context, Exim Bank does the financing for the SMEs. And I want to say also that the capitalization requirements of the Exim Bank go much further than just that $600 million. So I'm engaged with the Minister of Finance in further discussions along with the Development Bank of Jamaica to enhance the capital requirements of the Exim Bank.
That is critical, Minister, and I hope that the Minister of Finance accedes to that request, because I don't see how we can move the economy forward.
Absolutely.
And the bed without this effort.
And I should also tell you that there was a fund that has come out of the COVID problems. It was called, I think, referred to as the Tourism Grant Program, where initially some funds were set aside, and we now have, I think there's an amount of 266 million that is set to be granted to some small hotels, also some of your transport, some shops in the tourism industry will be benefiting from this COVID money. Yes. I'm not hearing you too well. You may look a volume.
I said, okay.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Then this is the area of the business environment. Now, part of the issue we're grappling with is the whole matter of access to financing from the MSME sector. And as part of that struggle, it is the collateralization of financing. So that in the DBJ, you now have the credit enhancement program. Part of that is to address the gap between funding needs and guarantee and some collateralization. But I want to ask you then, Minister, that remains a constraint, and it is. What has happened to the security interest in personal property legislation act that was intended to address the whole matter of collateral and providing collateral for the MSME sector? What is happening? Has a review taken place, and where are we?
Let me indicate to you that under this registry that we have, almost 23,000 loans have already been issued using the registry. Of that number, 2,277 are direct business loans, and just over 20,000 are individual loans. So it is actually quite active, and we expect it to grow.
And first of all, I'm very pleased to hear that there's some activity and it's increasing apparently. I want to ask him what is happening to the review. The legislation was set to review, to have a review period. Where are we in that review period? In that review.
What's the? They don't hurt me anymore. Go ahead, Dr. Gunn, answer that for me.
Okay. For the review, we had received some funding to engage in both a legislative and operational review of the SIPA. The review is in fact completed, and the draft proposal, I believe, is now at the AGC for further. But the fact is, you're correct, the review was in fact done, and we have completed it, and the recommendations have all been made, and it's now at the AGC.
Could those recommendations is in the form of instructions to the AG? Might that be? I have not heard about it. The review, what came out of that review? When might that be shared?
It needs cabinet approval, and that's what we're all waiting.
So you've gotten cabinet approval?
No, we are waiting.
Oh, I thought you said it went to the AG. All right. Well, I think it's important. I'd like to have some.
Yeah, it's actually being reviewed by the Attorney General at this time. This submission before being submitted to cabinet.
So it's on its way to cabinet. The other piece of legislation that is really critical in this period is the Insolvency Act. The Insolvency Act. Again, that too needs to be reviewed and should have been reviewed in 2019. But more critically is the fact I'd like to know the Office of Supervisor of Insolvency. How has that been operated? Could you give me an indication as the number of cases that has been received and are active before that entity? Because, Minister, you see, if this entity in particular is not activated, what we are left with is what we had previously, which is liquidation, the liquidation process. And this piece of legislation was intended to deal with rehabilitation of businesses, and we need it now more than ever to rehabilitate our business without losing them and losing the jobs that are connected to it. So, very interested in to know what is the review process, where is it, and what are the case loads before it.
Okay, as you know, the act was passed in 2014 and became operational in 2015. So far, there have been 130 cases that have. I'd have to get that distinction for you. Yeah.
Just moving on quickly. The other area I have to touch on now is the MSME sector, and the department in the ministry. I hope is playing the role that was intended for it, which is to strengthen the oversight
Yes.
of the programs of the sector. But there are two areas of concern, again centering on finance and financing of the MSME. There is the effort to create the MSME fund. My understanding is that that fund was premised on that there be measures taken to ensure that the unclaimed funds within banks were accessed and some of those funds targeted at the MSME sector. I'm aware that there was a consultancy maybe a year or two ago. The question is, where are we in that program and in that effort to get access to the unclaimed funds, which I believe should be helping the MSME sector, particularly at this point, at this time.
All right. What I can say to you is that this matter has been directly put to the Ministry of Finance and to the Minister of Finance, and that it is very likely that in short order, it's the Cabinet will have to make a final decision on it. So that is where it's at right now. But I happen to agree with you that I think it's a practical and good idea that we should seek to use some of those funds in order to help with this crisis that we have and to help our MSMEs with financing. It makes a lot of sense. And that is my position as the MIIC minister.
Well, you have the opposition full support.
Thank you.
In that effort, because it is, if the budget, if the other traditional sources cannot address this knotty and thorny issue for all these years, we must look to what is a source, a legitimate source of funding to address this fundamental problem. So you have a position, full support.
Thank you.
In that regard.
What we have to do now is speed it up.
Yes, well, we look forward to that, and we want to hear more.
Thank you.
About that. Minister, my concern in this regard then is that under the enhanced credit, under the enhanced credit facility that DBJ is now implementing, that again is another workaround of the substantial problem, which is inequity and of access to fund, whether by formal or informal enterprises. And we're now talking about the formal enterprises. And if they're having problems accessing resources, then I don't want to contemplate what the informal, what problems they're having, because they're not regarded anywhere in the minister's program. They are informal and they are ignored. But that we know they're real because they employ significant persons in the sector. So my question to you is, the budget to support that enhanced credit, guaranteed credit program, was reduced in the 2021 budget. 800 million was assigned. That amount was reduced through the supplementary budget process to 400 million. We come now in the wake of a recovery effort. The task force that you mentioned, Economic Recovery Task Force, clearly recommend a critical role for the MSME sector. And yet, the funding under that program with DBJ remains at the 400 million level. And when you look at the number of beneficiaries, it is woeful. 70 MSME enterprises have been benefited, or in total from the beginning, maybe 200. But that's not meeting the needs of the sector. And so in combination with the lack of this MSME fund, the absence of the MSME fund, with this guaranteed loan program, we are not impacting the sector at all. And so, Minister, I want to ask you again, this 4.1%, the 4% growth that is anticipated, how is your ministry going to contribute significantly to that? And if not your ministry, which ministry?
All right, let me say first of all that I agree with you, right? And in the same way that I've told you that we'll be having further dialogue to get support from the DBJ to assist the Exim Bank more. It's in a similar fashion we'll have to engage the DBJ in further discussion. Now, you know, the DBJ does not report to my ministry, right? But we have to work together. So and I think that as part of that broader discussion, not just about what the Exim Bank can get, but certainly how their own program at the DBJ can be enhanced to assist in this process is something that is definitely on a matter of high priority.
Can Minister, you have the opposition supporting that?
Absolutely, including the dormant fund.
We won't be at the table, but you have our support on that. Because something needs to be done there. May I then move? I'm going to move quickly to...
Doctor don't want to add something.
I want to just add something to that because you mentioned both the formal and informal sector. And one of the drive that the ministry is on is to create an enabling environment to increase the formality and a move from the informality to the informal sector. We have had successes recently. Grant you, it's not with the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, with the ILO, developing a program to move from informality to formality with the fisher folks. And we have engaged them to see how we can continue this program to include other SMEs, right? Because the fisher folk are, in fact, MSMEs. Because that is one of the drive that we need to get a number of persons into the formal system so that they can benefit from the formal apparatuses that exist, especially when it comes to financing.
And I want to add as well that we have different programs, such as the Export Max program at the Jamaica Business Development Corporation, and of course the programs that are being run by JAMPRO, inclusive of a major program. Let me see where that is. Yeah, major program. Yes, I just want to mention a major program that is being put together by JAMPRO called the Global Skills Services.
Coming to that, I have some question on that.
Okay.
I'm coming to that. And that's where I'm headed now to trade facilitation, which is a key aspect of the growth project and for which your ministry have a key role. Minister, let me ask you first about the trade board. And there was a pre-inspection program that was started. How is that program working? And is there any intention of expanding that program from simply Japan, which is where it started, to other places, or has that been done already?
The program is going quite well, actually. And some people have complained about it. But I think it was necessary, right, in order to avoid just bringing in a lot of junk into the country and then turning around having to find parts and so on for them. So that program is definitely I'm aware and have been briefed by the trade board that it is working very well.
So you see, I agree with the thrust that it's necessary to avoid some of those problems. Hence my question, is there any thinking of expanding it, or is it still based in Japan or expanded to
My
other?
understanding is that it has been expanded, in fact, and because it's been working so well, it actually has undergone expansion. And the first portion of it actually expired in January of this year, and it has now been renewed because of how well it is performing.
Minister.
All right, so I want to support the minister's point that the program has in fact been expanded. Granted that the principal agent is in Japan, but they have formed strategic partnership with many other partners who can offer similar services that meets the specifications of Jamaica, and therefore the access points have been increased tremendously, and that is why the minister can in fact say that the program has worked well.
I'm pleased to hear that. There are some rumblings, but I think about how it's working or not working, but we have more to say. But I think it's important. Minister, I want to ask about an aspect of the trade facilitation that the private sector has been raising some concern about, and that is the working within the ministry of what was established as a trade enforcement unit within the ministry. Where is that? Is it still working? And if not, why not?
Well, my brief on this tells me that the trade facilitation reform program has the objective of improving the business environment, make it easier for traders to do business. So it's also about reducing the cost and time in doing business. So while it is cross-cutting and involves the work of several ministries, my ministry has been designated as the lead implementing entity for the program. But we have to work closely with customs, for instance, right, and other agencies. So it is a vast program. However, there are some flagship programs that have been identified as key drivers for increasing our competitiveness. But I can undertake to get more information on the exact status of it. I undertake to get that and let you have it. But I need to know as well.
Yes, please. Minister, let me turn out to the global services. My first question, and I am in support of the resource allocation, but I'm wondering and wanting to know how, because I'm looking to see where in any of the communication is this global services defined, and what constitutes this global service, and more specifically, is logistics training, skills training for the logistics sector. Is that a part of this global services sector?
All right. I think it's important that we have a proper understanding of the global skills services. The general objective of the project is to promote the growth of the global services sector in Jamaica, particularly in higher value-added segments that have been transformed by information, communications technology, enabling them to be digitized, codified, fragmented, and undertaken at any distance from the core business and final customer. They can be divided into three main segments: business process outsourcing, the subcontracting of specific business processes to a third party, including internal business functions such as billing or purchasing and customer-related services such as marketing and technical support. Then you have the information technology enhancement services. That is the production and use of software such as network management, applications development, IT consulting, and software research and development. And thirdly, there's another one now called knowledge process outsourcing. So the first one was business process outsourcing. This one is knowledge process outsourcing. That is the outsourcing to providers with highly skilled and specialized professionals, including market intelligence, business analytics, and legal services. Specifically, the project is intended to provide the sector with better skilled workers and increase Jamaica's institutional capacity to attract foreign direct investments and to increase exports. Very, very key. If we do not establish a high technological platform, we will never be competitive in the export market. Technology is a companion right now, right? A total companion if we want to create wealth in this country. So just let me finish by saying that we have some achievements under the project so far, being implemented by JAMPRO, by the way. JAMPRO is implementing the project. The establishment of a project steering committee to provide strategic guidance on the implementation of the project. The establishment of the Global Services Skills Council. The Industry Skills Upgrade Strategy. That is the overall objective of the strategy, is to create a pipeline of workers with the required skills companies need to fuel their capacity to evolve into higher value services, as well as support the upskilling and reskilling of their workforce. And there's a consultancy which commenced in August of last year and is scheduled to be completed in April of this year in relation to that upgrade of skills. Career pathway framework. The overall objective of this consultancy, this is another consultancy now, is to support the global services sector in researching, designing, and fully developing a careers pathway framework for the industry. The purpose of this is to provide people in Jamaica with a clear understanding of the attractiveness of the sector as a job and a career by providing sector information, career pathways, and skills profiles. This consultancy commenced in June of last year and is scheduled to be completed in September of this year. These are things that are active, running right now. Then there's a pilot 2020 apprenticeship program. 143 apprentices were selected by the GSS firms to participate in 12-month training at supervisory management level. Apprentices are trained by HEART, NSTA Trust, approved training providers on the supervisory management curriculum, which has been approved and endorsed by the Global Services Skills Board. This program
But them love them, them man